May 1945. The Third Reich crumbles. Allied forces sweep through Germany, liberating concentration camps, securing cities, and hunting war criminals. But in a forgotten bunker beneath the Harz Mountains, Major James Caldwell of Army Intelligence confronts a Nazi general who begs for execution rather than cooperation. What Caldwell does next violates every protocol, defies direct orders, and ultimately saves hundreds of thousands of American lives in the Pacific Theater. May 7th, 1945, 06:23 hours. The Nordhausen district of Thuringia smelled of cordite, diesel exhaust, and something else Major James Caldwell couldn't name, a chemical sweetness that made his throat constrict. The 104th Infantry Division had secured the area 72 hours earlier, uncovering the Mittelbau Dora concentration camp and its underground V-2 rocket production facilities. 20,000 slave laborers dead, another 10,000 evacuated on death marches. Caldwell had seen Buchenwald 2 weeks prior, and still this shocked him. The 34-year-old intelligence officer from Columbus, Ohio, had graduated MIT in 1933 with degrees in mechanical engineering and German. The Army recruited him in 1942, specifically for technical intelligence operations. His mission: identify and interrogate German scientists, engineers, and military officers whose knowledge could benefit American strategic interests. The Pentagon brass wanted Germany's rocket technology before the Russians claimed it. They wanted jet propulsion secrets, advanced metallurgy, guidance systems, chemical propellants. Caldwell stood before Bunker Complex 17, a reinforced concrete structure buried 40 meters beneath limestone and topsoil. His interpreter, Sergeant Eddie Kowalski from Detroit, checked the manifest. "Intelligence says there's a big fish down there, Major. General der Artillerie Walter Eisenberg, Chief Technical Director for the V-2 program since 1943. Responsible for integrating forced labor, accelerating production schedules, and improving guidance accuracy. The files say he's brilliant, ruthless, and completely loyal to Hitler." Caldwell descended the steel ladder into darkness. Emergency lighting flickered, powered by a failing generator. The bunker's main corridor stretched 200 meters, lined with offices, storage rooms, and a sophisticated command center. Maps covered the walls: London, Antwerp, Paris, with impact markers showing where V-2 rockets had struck. Over 3,000 missiles launched, 9,000 civilians dead, 27,000 wounded. They found Eisenberg in the communications room, seated at a metal desk, wearing a spotless Wehrmacht uniform despite 3 days without resupply. 51 years old, grey-haired, with the bearing of Prussian aristocracy. He didn't stand when Caldwell entered. "General Eisenberg, I'm Major James Caldwell, United States Army Intelligence. You're now a prisoner of war under the Geneva Convention. You will be interrogated regarding your technical knowledge and operational activities." Eisenberg's English was flawless, his accent suggesting university education in Britain or America. "I will tell you nothing, Major. I suggest you shoot me now and save us both considerable time." Caldwell studied him. Most Nazi officers either blustered with ideological defiance or immediately began negotiating for better treatment. This calm certainty was unusual. "General, the war is over. Germany has surrendered. Your Führer is dead. There's no strategic value in silence anymore. You misunderstand, Major. I'm not protecting military secrets. I'm protecting myself." Eisenberg stood, moving to the wall map. "You've seen the camp. You know what happened there. I authorized using concentration camp prisoners as forced labor. I signed requisition orders for 12,000 workers, knowing half would die within 6 months from malnutrition, disease, and industrial accidents. I personally inspected the production facilities, saw the conditions, and did nothing to improve them because doing so would have reduced output efficiency. I am guilty of crimes that warrant execution. So shoot me now before you waste resources on a trial." Caldwell felt Kowalski tense beside him. The interpreter had lost family in the Warsaw Ghetto. "Why did you stay? Your subordinates fled days ago." "Because I'm not a coward like them. They ran to Argentina, to Switzerland, pretending they were just following orders. I gave those orders. I take responsibility, but I will not participate in theater, Allied judges pretending they care about justice while they steal our technology. Shoot me as a war criminal or leave me here to starve. Those are the only acceptable outcomes. Caldwell circled the room, examining technical documents scattered across desks, guidance system schematics, propellant mixture specifications, trajectory calculation tables, manufacturing process improvements. This was exactly the intelligence the Pentagon wanted. Eisenberg's knowledge could accelerate American rocket development by 5 years, maybe 10. General, I can't execute prisoners, but I can guarantee you'll face trial for war crimes. Then we have nothing to discuss. Caldwell made a decision that would haunt him for decades. What if there was a third option? What if your technical knowledge could save American lives, not German lives? I know you don't care about that anymore. But American soldiers currently preparing to invade Japan? For the first time, Eisenberg showed interest. Continue. Japan won't surrender easily. Intelligence estimates 500,000 American casualties in a mainland invasion. But if we had advanced rocket technology, if we could deliver overwhelming firepower with precision guidance systems, we might shorten the war. Your knowledge could save those American lives. Not redemption. Nothing redeems what you've done. But perhaps something resembling purpose. Eisenberg sat slowly. You're asking me to betray Germany by helping America. Germany is ash and rubble. I'm asking if you'd rather die having contributed nothing or die having possibly prevented hundreds of thousands of deaths. Not German deaths, American, Japanese, Russian, human deaths. Silence stretched. The generator hummed. Somewhere above, artillery rumbled as Allied forces consolidated positions. I need to think. Caldwell nodded. You have 12 hours. Then we transport you to Frankfurt for processing. What happens there depends on your decision now. May 8th, 1945. 1847 hours. The interrogation room in Frankfurt's IG Farben building was cramped, overheated, and deliberately uncomfortable. Army intelligence had converted the former Nazi administrative headquarters into their European Operations Center. Eisenberg sat across from Caldwell, flanked by 2 MPs with Thompson submachine guns. On the table between them, technical manuals, calculation sheets, and a portable recording device. Colonel Harrison Mitchell from the Pentagon's Special Weapons Division had arrived that morning via military transport from Washington. 58 years old, career officer, veteran of the First World War's chemical warfare programs. He stood against the wall, observing, evaluating, judging whether Caldwell's gamble would pay off. Let's begin with the V2's guidance system, Caldwell said, activating the recorder. Specifically the gyroscopic stabilization mechanism and its integration with the graphite vane thrust vector control. Eisenberg stared at the microphone. His hands, Caldwell noticed, trembled slightly. Before I discuss technical specifications, I need guarantees, written guarantees. Colonel Mitchell stepped forward. You're in no position to negotiate, General. Then shoot me. Eisenberg's voice remained steady, despite the trembling hands. I told Major Caldwell my conditions. I will provide complete technical cooperation regarding rocket propulsion, guidance systems, and advanced weapons development. In exchange, I want documentation that my cooperation saved Allied lives. Not immunity. I know that's impossible. But acknowledgement that whatever punishment I receive, I at least tried to contribute something besides death. Mitchell glanced at Caldwell. The Major had briefed him during the flight from Paris, explaining Eisenberg's psychological profile. The General wasn't seeking forgiveness or redemption. He wanted meaning. He'd spent 3 years building weapons that killed indiscriminately, managing slave labor that died in agonizing conditions, and contributing to a regime that attempted genocide. He knew he deserved execution, but he also possessed technical knowledge that could save the very people who would inevitably condemn him. I can authorize documentation of your cooperation, Mitchell said carefully. I can ensure military tribunals receive testimony about your technical assistance. I cannot promise it will affect sentencing. War crimes are war crimes. I understand. Begin recording. For the next 6 hours, Eisenberg talked. He described the V-2's design evolution from early prototypes that exploded on launch pads to refined weapons achieving supersonic speeds and 50-mile ranges. He detailed the guidance system's 3-axis gyroscope configuration, the alcohol-liquid-oxygen propellant mixture ratios, the graphite thrust vanes that enabled steering during powered flight. He sketched schematics from memory, annotating calculations in margins, explaining iterative design improvements that reduced mechanical failures from 40% to 12%. Caldwell struggled to keep pace. His engineering background helped, but Eisenberg's knowledge was encyclopedic. The general had overseen every technical aspect of V-2 production, from metallurgical analysis of combustion chamber materials to statistical modeling of trajectory dispersal patterns. He knew which manufacturing shortcuts introduced unacceptable risk, which quality control measures actually improved reliability, which theoretical improvements remained impractical given available materials. At midnight, Mitchell called a break. Caldwell followed him into the corridor, where MPs guarded both ends. "He's legitimate," Mitchell said quietly. "The technical details match everything we've recovered from Peenemünde and Nordhausen, but he's also holding back. I can tell. There's something he hasn't mentioned yet." "He's testing us," Caldwell replied. "He wants to see if we're serious about using his knowledge, or if this is just intelligence gathering before trial. He needs to believe his cooperation matters." Does it matter? Caldwell thought of the projections he'd seen in classified briefings: Operation Downfall, the planned invasion of Japan, estimates ranging from 400,000 to 1 million American casualties, Japanese casualties potentially numbering in the millions, Soviet entry into the Pacific theater creating post-war political complications. Every strategic analysis concluded the war would continue at least into 1946, possibly 1947. If his knowledge accelerates our weapons development, if it gives us technical advantages we wouldn't otherwise have for 5 years, then yes, it matters. Not morally. Nothing justifies what he did. But practically. Mitchell nodded slowly. The Pentagon wants German rocket technology. The Russians are grabbing scientists as fast as they can. We're in a race. Eisenberg is our prize catch. But if word gets out we're collaborating with concentration camp administrators, the political fallout will be catastrophic. Then we keep it quiet. Classify everything. His cooperation stays buried in classified files for 50 years. And the trial? He stands trial for war crimes, public trial, full documentation of atrocities. He receives whatever sentence the tribunal imposes. But his technical cooperation remains classified, and if that knowledge saves American lives in the Pacific, then this morally repugnant bargain was worth making. Mitchell studied him. "You believe that?" "No, sir. But I believe 500,000 American soldiers deserve to come home alive. If that requires dealing with a Nazi war criminal, I'll live with that decision." They returned to the interrogation room. Eisenberg hadn't moved. His uniform was wrinkled now, dark circles under his eyes, but his gaze remained clear. "General," Mitchell said, sitting across from him, "Major Caldwell believes your cooperation can save American lives in the Pacific. I'm less convinced. So I'm going to ask you directly. Is there anything in your technical knowledge that could significantly impact ongoing military operations against Japan?" Eisenberg met his gaze. "Yes. But it's not rocket technology. It's something else. Something I never implemented because Hitler's priorities shifted to reprisal weapons targeting cities. Something that could revolutionize strategic bombardment." Caldwell leaned forward. "Explain." May 9th, 1945, 03:19 hours. The rain hammered Frankfurt's blacked-out streets, and inside the converted interrogation room, Eisenberg sketched diagrams that made Caldwell's breath catch. Not rockets, not jet propulsion. Something completely unexpected that shattered every assumption about Nazi weapons development. In 1943, I was assigned to evaluate emerging guidance technologies for long-range weapons, Eisenberg began, his pencil moving across paper with practiced precision. The V-2 was fundamentally inaccurate. We could hit London, a target 30 miles wide, but we couldn't hit specific military installations, industrial complexes, or strategic infrastructure. The circular error probable was over 10 kilometers, acceptable for terror bombing, useless for tactical warfare. He sketched a complex mechanism combining radio receivers, analog computing circuits, and servo-controlled steering fins. I proposed developing radar-guided precision targeting for conventional strategic bombers, not jet fighters or rockets, your B-29 superfortresses flying missions against Japan. The technology would allow bombardiers to identify and track specific targets through cloud cover at night with unprecedented accuracy. Colonel Mitchell stood abruptly. Radar-guided bombing through clouds, fog, smoke, darkness. The system used ground-based radar stations to track the bomber's position, compute trajectory corrections, and transmit steering instructions via encrypted radio signals. The bomber's onboard receiver translated those signals into analog computer inputs, which automatically adjusted the bomb release timing and trajectory compensation calculations. Accuracy within 100 meters from 30,000 feet altitude. Caldwell felt something shift in the room's atmosphere. The strategic implications were staggering. American bomber crews over Japan faced devastating losses, 10% casualty rates per mission, skilled pilots killed because they had to make visual runs through anti-aircraft fire to ensure accuracy. Night missions were nearly impossible. Cloud cover meant aborted missions or wildly inaccurate bombing that wasted ordnance and achieved nothing. But radar-guided precision targeting would change everything. Bombers could operate at night, above weather, beyond anti-aircraft range, and still hit specific factories, rail yards, fuel depots, military installations. Japanese air defenses would become irrelevant. American casualties would plummet. Strategic bombardment would transform from blunt instrument to surgical blade. Why didn't Germany deploy this? Mitchell demanded. Hitler wanted V-2s. He wanted reprisal weapons terrorizing British cities, not tactical advantages supporting Wehrmacht operations. I submitted proposals in late 1943. They were rejected. Resources went to rocket production instead. I kept the research documentation, hoping circumstances would change. They never did. Mitchell paced, his boots echoing on concrete. Where is this documentation? Burned. I destroyed everything before American forces arrived, assuming you'd execute me as a war criminal regardless. Caldwell's heart sank. A technological breakthrough that could save thousands of American lives, and Eisenberg had burned it. However, Eisenberg continued quietly, I remember everything. Every circuit diagram, every calculation, every component specification. I designed the system. I supervised prototype testing. I know how to build it. More importantly, I know how to adapt it for your B-29 fleet operating against Japan. Silence. Rain drummed the blacked-out windows, and MP shifted position, his Thompson clicking softly. Mitchell turned to Caldwell. Assessment. If he's telling the truth, if this technology works as described, it could revolutionize the bombing campaign against Japan. Precision targeting without visual confirmation means night operations, all-weather operations, reduced casualties, increased effectiveness. The Air Force could cripple Japan's industrial capacity within months instead of years. And if he's lying, if this is elaborate misdirection, Eisenberg interrupted, then shoot me for wasting your time. But consider, I'm already facing execution for war crimes. Why would I fabricate technology you'll immediately discover is fraudulent? My only possible motivation for cooperation is the slim hope that helping save American lives might mean something when I face judgment, human judgment at Nuremberg, or divine judgment afterward. Mitchell made a decision. You have 1 week to produce working documentation, detailed schematics, component specifications, implementation protocols. If your radar guidance system proves legitimate, we'll fast-track development and testing. If it doesn't, your trial proceeds with prejudice. I need technical staff, draftsmen, engineers, specialists who understand radio systems and analog computing. You'll get them. Caldwell, assemble a team. Classification level Ultra. Nobody discusses this outside secured facilities. We're calling it Operation Blindfire. Mitchell headed for the door, then paused. General, understand something. Your cooperation doesn't redeem you. It doesn't erase 20,000 dead at Mittelbau-Dora. It doesn't absolve you of crimes against humanity. At most, it means American mothers get their sons back alive. That's not redemption. That's basic human decency you should have practiced 3 years ago. Eisenberg nodded slowly. I know, but it's all I have left to offer. The week that followed became a blur of technical consultations, engineering sessions, and prototype development. Caldwell assembled a team from Army Signal Corps specialists, MIT-trained engineers, and radio systems experts from Bell Laboratories. They worked in a sealed basement laboratory, sleeping 4 hours per night, surviving on coffee and K rations, driven by the knowledge that American bomber crews were dying over Japan while they raced to build Eisenberg's guidance system. The general proved legitimate. His memory was extraordinary, his technical knowledge comprehensive. He sketched circuit diagrams with component-level precision, calculated signal propagation delays, accounting for atmospheric ionization, designed antenna arrays, optimizing directional sensitivity. The American engineers verified his mathematics, tested his assumptions, and gradually concluded that Eisenberg's system wasn't just viable, it was brilliant. By May 16th, they had working prototypes. By May 23rd, field tests at Eglin Army Airfield in Florida proved the concept. A modified B-29 bomber, guided by ground radar and Eisenberg's analog computing system, dropped practice bombs through complete cloud cover and achieved accuracy within 50 meters, 20 times better than conventional visual bombing. The Pentagon authorized immediate production. By July, the first operational units deployed to Tinian Island in the Pacific. By August, B-29s, equipped with blind-fire guidance systems, conducted precision night raids against Japanese industrial targets, suffering minimal losses while destroying critical infrastructure with unprecedented efficiency. And Eisenberg returned to a cell in Frankfurt, awaiting trial. November 20th, 1945, 0900 hours, the Palace of Justice in Nuremberg, international military tribunal proceedings against major war criminals. General Walter Eisenberg stood in the defendant's dock, listening to prosecutors detail his crimes: forced labor administration, concentration camp oversight, 20,000 deaths attributed to his command decisions. Witness testimony described starvation, disease, industrial accidents caused by deliberate neglect. Major James Caldwell watched from the gallery, uncomfortable in his dress uniform. Beside him sat Colonel Mitchell, now promoted and reassigned to the Pentagon's Advanced Weapons Division. Neither man spoke. What could they say? The prosecution's case was overwhelming. Eisenberg's guilt was indisputable, but both men knew something the tribunal didn't. Classified at the highest levels, buried in files stamped ultra-secret, was documentation that Eisenberg's radar guidance system had fundamentally altered the Pacific War's final months. B-29 bomber casualties dropped 63% after blind-fire deployment. Strategic targets that previously required dozens of missions were eliminated in single-night raids. Japanese industrial production collapsed faster than any pre-war projection anticipated. Some military analysts believed the bombing campaign's unprecedented effectiveness contributed to Japan's decision to surrender after atomic weapons demonstrated America's overwhelming technological superiority. Others argued blind fire alone, by eliminating Japan's ability to wage war, made invasion unnecessary. The truth was complex, multifaceted, and completely classified. The tribunal knew none of this. They heard only evidence of atrocities. Eisenberg's defense attorney, a German lawyer named Schmidt, offered minimal testimony. The general had instructed him to present no defense based on coercion, superior orders, or ideological pressure. "I take responsibility," Eisenberg told the court when given opportunity to speak. "I knew what was happening at Mittelbau-Dora. I authorized using concentration camp prisoners as forced labor. I prioritized weapon production over human life. I am guilty as charged." The courtroom fell silent. Defendants usually offered elaborate justifications. Eisenberg offered only admission. "However," he continued, "I would ask the tribunal to consider that in the final months of the war, I provided technical cooperation to Allied forces. The details are classified, but I believe my knowledge contributed to saving Allied lives in the Pacific. This does not excuse my crimes, it does not merit leniency, but I ask that it be noted that whatever judgment I receive, I at least tried to contribute something besides death." Prosecutor Robert Jackson studied him coldly. "You ask acknowledgement for cooperation after committing atrocities? You want credit for helping the very forces whose victory condemned you?" "No, sir. I want only to know that before I die, I did something that mattered. Something that saved lives instead of destroying them, not for forgiveness, for meaning." The tribunal deliberated 3 days. They found Eisenberg guilty of crimes against humanity and war crimes. The sentence, death by hanging, to be carried out at Nuremberg prison. Caldwell attended the execution, December 9, 1945, near 100 hours. Eisenberg walked calmly to the gallows, refused religious counsel, and spoke his final words clearly. "I did what I was told. Then I did what I chose. Let history judge which mattered more." The trapdoor dropped. It was over. In the decades that followed, Operation Blindfire's existence remained classified. The technology evolved into modern precision-guided munitions, GPS-guided bombs, and terrain-following cruise missiles. Eisenberg's name appeared in no technical histories, no engineering journals, no public documentation. He existed in official records only as a Nazi war criminal, justly executed for atrocities. But in classified archives at the Pentagon, in sealed files not declassified until 1995, was documentation of a different story. A story about an intelligence officer who made a morally repugnant bargain. A war criminal who chose, in his final months, to save the lives of people whose nation would inevitably kill him. And a technology that changed warfare forever, purchased at the cost of dealing with a man who deserved no mercy. James Caldwell retired from the Army in 1962 as a colonel. He never spoke publicly about Eisenberg, bound by classification restrictions and personal shame. But in a sealed letter, opened after his death in 1993, he wrote, "We bargain with devils because angels don't have the information we need." Eisenberg saved American lives. He also murdered 20,000 concentration camp prisoners. Both facts are true. History will judge which we should remember. I pray history is wiser than I was. The radar guidance system Eisenberg designed in desperation, hoping to create meaning from horror, evolved into technologies that define modern warfare. Precision-guided munitions, smart bombs, autonomous targeting systems. Every technical descendant of Blindfire carries the moral complexity of its origin. Brilliant innovation born from collaboration with evil, purchased through bargains that saved lives while compromising principles. The debate continues. Should America have collaborated with Nazi war criminals to gain technological advantages? Did Eisenberg's cooperation truly save lives, or simply accelerate weapons development that would have occurred anyway? Was Caldwell's decision ethically defensible or morally bankrupt? The answer depends on perspective. To American soldiers who survived the Pacific War's final months, whose bombers returned safely because radar guidance let them operate beyond anti-aircraft range, the collaboration was justified. To concentration camp survivors who watched Eisenberg hang for crimes that his late cooperation couldn't erase, the bargain was obscene. Both perspectives have merit. Both carry truth. And between them lies the terrible complexity of total war, where saving lives sometimes requires dealing with those who destroyed them, where technical brilliance coexists with moral bankruptcy, and where the only clear certainty is that simple answers don't exist. Eisenberg understood this, so did Caldwell, and so must we, as we inherit technologies built on compromises that haunt us still. If this untold story of World War II opened your eyes to the moral complexities of wartime decisions, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Drop a comment telling us what you would have done in Major Caldwell's position. Was this collaboration justified, or did America compromise its values? Your perspective matters. Share this video with anyone interested in the hidden stories that shaped our world. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.